Since first coming to India in 1987, I had wanted to visit Mathanguri Forest Rest House in Manas National Park, West Assam, on the border with Bhutan. My chance came when my friend Nijar Das from Calcutta asked me to join him for a 5-day visit in early spring. After collecting our permits from the office of the Forest Range Officer in Barbata Road, the district headquarter town, we travelled by taxi for 20 kilometres to Bansbari, the main entrance to the central part of the park. There we paid our entrance fee and drove a further 20 kilometres through the park to Mathanguri. This visit to Manas was part of a greater tour with my wife. I could not carry all my filming equipment, so there are very few shots of the birds we saw. This film was made with a simple video camera without the help of a tripod. As we arrived in Mathanguri, we were welcomed by a group of the resident Cape langur, the most common type of langur in northeast India. They were feeding in trees near the Forest Department offices. Manas is famous for another species of langur, the golden langur, that can be found only in Manas. Unfortunately, the area where you can see these rare primates is on the Bhutan side of the park and was closed to visitors. We drove a little further and reached the rest house, situated in the foothills of the Himalaya on the bank of the Manas River, bordering Bhutan, just at the point where the fast-flowing river enters the plains. About 80 years ago, the British built this rest house, which has 2 floors with 6 available rooms. The rooms are large and have attached bathrooms. It is a popular place to stay and food is available. As with most forest rest houses from the British era, it has a big balcony on the 2nd floor with a superb view over the Manas River into the mountains of Bhutan. One morning we saw this herd of wild buffalo coming down from the Bhutanese side of the park to drink in the river. Later that evening, Nijar Das arrived with his uncle, and over the next 4 days we travelled through the park searching for birds and animals. Nijar rented a small 4x4 Suzuki Jeep, known in India as the Gypsy, from one of the resorts in Bansbari. The deal was 1,800 rupees a day, plus extra for petrol and lunch for the driver. An armed guard has to escort every vehicle and can be arranged with the Forest Department in Mathanguri. One of the first birds we saw was this changeable hawk eagle. It was feeding on a red jungle fowl. It refused to abandon its prey and gave us a good view at short distance for a long time. Manas was one of India's best national parks until 1989, when it was taken over by militants who wiped out all of the wildlife. Since 2003, there has been an agreement between the government and the militants, and the park is slowly recovering. Birds are now plentiful, but encountering any mammal is rare. We mainly saw wild buffalo and elephants. Rhinos have been reintroduced, but the deer population is still very low. We saw only 4 animals in 5 days, which explains the low population of only 18 tigers. The flat landscape, only 200 metres above sea level, is very much in contrast with the mountains starting at the Bhutanese border through which the park continues. The flatland is a mixture of grassland and moist deciduous forest, with the silk cotton tree being the dominant tree in the grassland areas. Mostly we encounter high elephant grass, but there are also large areas with short grass more favoured by the animals. This habitat is known in India as the Bahar Terai zone. It once covered all the foothills of the Himalayas, but now remains only in a few pockets. To protect the park, the government established anti-poaching camps, locally known as beats. Beats are located at strategic points, concentrated in areas inhabited by the rhino. A beat is usually a two-storey building with a balcony on the top. It has living quarters on the first floor and basic dining facilities on the ground floor. Wood is collected and cut by the men. Food has to be arranged not only for the forest guards, but also for the domestic elephants used for patrol. Patrolling the park on elephant back is the main job of the forest guards in Manas. An elephant can go anywhere and is the only effective way to reach the poachers. The population of Indian rhinoceros, the national animal of Assam state, was wiped out in Manas during the 14 years the park was under militant occupation. Rhinos were reintroduced from other parks in Assam, and the population is currently at 27 animals, the same number as when reintroduced a few years ago. The population has not increased due to poaching. Manas is the stronghold of the Bengal florican, and the Kuri Bell Beat is probably the best place to watch these endangered bustards. The area surrounding Kuri Bell Beat is vast grassland with short grass, favoured by rhinos and floricans. We saw 3 male Bengal floricans in breeding plumage, but they were too far away for my simple handycam to take any good shots. They were too far even for Nijar Das with his more sophisticated equipment. In this area we saw more birds and animals than in any other part of the grasslands, including the Finn's weaver, another endangered bird for which Manas is its stronghold. One of the advantages for bird watchers that Manas has over other parks is that it is possible to get out of the vehicle and walk. The armed guard will escort you while the vehicle follows on behind. This is particularly rewarding in forested areas. This park has some of the best kept low Himalayan tropical and moist deciduous forests in the country. It was in one of these patches of forest that we saw this Malayan giant squirrel. A little behind Mathanguri Forest Rest House is the border with Bhutan, where the hilly part of the park begins. Indian nationals do not need to show any documents to enter Bhutan, and we were allowed in with our residence permits. On the other side of the river, we could see the palace where the King of Bhutan stays when he visits Royal Manas National Park. The road follows the Manas River for 14 kilometres to Panbang, the first village into Bhutan. From here, a modern road goes to the capital, Thimphu. We stopped on the new bridge to look back over the old bridge to the mountains of Bhutan before we headed back to India. Arguably, this is the most beautiful part of the park, where hillbirds start to be seen. Here in Bhutan, we were escorted by the same forest guard from India, and while walking, we encountered a roosting tree with 37 pied hornbills.